Well, I know you were then moved to some bases in China, and because a lot of the ships had been sunk by the Japanese, you didn't have the supplies that you needed to build the landing strips. So the Chinese pitched in. Didn't Chiang Kai-shek have his warlords come in and put the serfs to work building these airstrips for him?
The Chinese had to build 4 runways, which were each over a mile long, for each of our 4 B-29 groups. And the way they did it was they took large rocks and boulders from the nearby Min River and its tributaries and broke them into small pieces by use of hammers. And since there was no mechanical equipment, bulldozers or graders or anything else, they would carry these in their baskets or wheelbarrows over and lay out for the runway. Then they would go back to the river and bring back mud, which they would pour into the cracks and crevices. And they tried pounding the gravel to smooth it up, and then they used large rollers and pulled by 100 or 200 or maybe 300 peasants and compact the runway to withstand the heavy weight of the B-29s.
Now, then your group moved to the Marianas, and why did you do that instead of bombing out of China?
Well, when D-Day in Europe was on June 6th of 1944, that was the same time that the Marines and the Army invaded the Saipan, Tinian, and Guam in the Marianas. And within about 3 or 4 months, they started building airfields there. And our results in China were, and the CBI, China, Burma, India area, were so poor because the logistics were just terrible. We couldn't get our supplies. We were lucky to fly 1 mission a month and gradually a couple times. But out of the Marianas, they'd soon be able to fly, every other day or so. And if we got enough planes, every day.
When you were on a bombing run, the bomb bay doors opened up and you dropped your 10 to 20 ton load. Did you feel the aircraft rise?
Very definitely. By the time we were on a bombing mission, we were out usually 7 to 10 hours and had used up at least half our gasoline. And so our weight of, say, 140,000 pounds that we had taken off with was way down. And so when you're flying along and in formation on daylight missions, the lead bombardier would drop his bombs, and everybody was set knowing that we were on the bomb run, that we would salvo our bombs when he dropped his. So yes, we would jump maybe 100 or 200 feet up in the air, and it was great if all of us released our bombs at the same time and we all went up at the same time. But flying in formation was very hard because of the airstream and the buffeting of the winds from the prop wash and so forth. And so there was a constant battle trying to stay close enough to the other planes in the formation. And if somebody was out of kilter, that didn't do us any good holding our formation.
I remember you telling me how it would be freezing outside and you'd sometimes have to open the windows because the pilots would get so hot, overheated, just trying to man the big bombers and keep them from going up and down, and the pilots would be perspiring and the rest of the crew would be shivering and actually getting frostbite.
Well, I particularly remember one mission on December 7th of 1944, and I don't know why the United States and even other countries would pick a previous date and try to retaliate or something on that date. So anyway, on December 7th, we went to Mukden, Manchuria, and the outside temperature was 64 degrees below zero. Well, the bomber's nose was glass, and it would frost up, and we couldn't see. And finally, we were desperate. Here we were trying to maintain a formation at 25,000 feet, and we couldn't see. So we could take and lift up our pilot windows, and at least we could see the rest of the formation, and we could tell the bombardier if the bombs were ready to be dropped or something like that. And so yes, we worked up a big sweat. In fact, one of my friends, McMillan, got his long johns were just solid wet. And then when he turned away from the target and moved over a little bit, then the co-pilot was flying, and all of a sudden he was in a sheet of ice. So the rest of the plane members were having problems because we were freezing their fingers and all. But it was the only way we could do it.
It was a tough job flying those big airplanes.
We didn't have heaters to defrost the plane.
Most of the pilots named their airplanes. What did you name yours?
Well, that's true. Most pilots named their airplanes after maybe a wife or a sweetheart, and in some cases we had a lot of painted ladies on the planes. And of course, as I had mentioned, most of us that had been overseas a year and a half were anxious to go home. And one of the popular phrases at that period of time was, "I'm going to shag my ass there," or "You will shag our ass to the movie," or whatever. And people called me Shang or Shag, and so it was sort of a play on words that, hey, we'd like to shag our fannies on home. And so I painted the word shagging home on the plane.
Well, that must have been inspiring to the rest of the crew.
We all did come home later.